Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to One Exclusive. With us in studio is Hewat Beukes, President to the Workers' Revolutionary Party. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, before we get to the present and the future of the party, let's look a little bit at the past. The Workers' Revolutionary Party has been in existence since the 1980s, and you guys have taken part in every national election except 2009. Why is that?
2009, the party was very much embroiled in various national struggles of workers. There was the homeless struggle. There was the TCL, the pension struggles of workers. From that we were embroiled in since 2008. At that time, we also did not have the resources to diversify into an election. It must be understood that parliamentary elections for us as a Marxist party is not a principle, it is a tactic. So it's not something cast in stone that we must participate in elections.
Still touching on your past, in 2015 there was a rift in leadership and there was some strife between you and Benson Kapala. And allegedly because of that, the party lost its 1.3 million allowance for the year from Parliament. What has changed since then? What actually happened in 2015? Let's start there.
Well, it's not that there was a rift in the leadership. Benson Kapala is not a leader. He had to undergo training. Benson Kapala joined the party in 2014 under the pretext that he wanted to be a socialist. And the understanding is that he had to undergo training because we are a strict party. But there was no rift. After, right up to the 6th of May, when we appointed them to standing committees, he left the party. And we informed the Speaker, and they refused to remove him.
Sure. So you're not saying that it was really, you were at fault in any way. Now is it justified that you lost your allowance for that year?
No. There are profound reasons why we are not, we could fight physically for, we can go up to Parliament and we can take in our positions and we can go en masse. But as I say, this is a tactic. We are not going to play into the hands of our opponents. The point is that as far back as April 2014, we took up the matter with the ECN about the so-called EVMs.
Yes.
Now, these EVMs are Indian manufactured, and it is they are managed by Indian technicians. There are no Namibian technicians, which basically means that this is not a sovereign state. Its elections are directed from New Delhi.
So like the Republican Party and NUDO and a few others I've had, you are also of the opinion that the elections were rigged in 2014?
We do not say, that's not what we are saying. We know it's rigged. All these elections were rigged. That is a fact. Okay. But our problem with the EVMs is that, the basis, you're talking about democracy, the basis of universal franchise is when you can vote and you know where your vote is going. But an electronic machine is pre-programmed with what they call logical circuits. And those logical circuits, only the programmer knows what they can do. You can manipulate it to do anything.
Essentially, you are saying that the EVMs didn't work, that the results are not legitimate.
It's illegitimate because the Indian technicians were running the whole thing in the last election. You know why we won 2 seats? It's not because there was no rigging. We would have got no seats, but we only entered for the elections at the end of October. And it was too short a space for the Indians to come in and to reprogram the whole process.
Right.
That is why we got the votes.
Okay, so that's a very interesting analogy.
And the thing that you can see, Namibia is the only country where you get an exponential increase in unemployment and an exponential increase in the number of votes by the incumbent party.
All right, I'm not here to debate the voting, but let's look at those 2 seats. Now, they are still vital. What's going to happen in the next elections, I'm not sure. But let's talk about what you are planning to do with these 2 seats.
The point is that at the moment, what they did, Kachavivi, the speaker, when we had to get our money and when we withdrew, we put in these 2 candidates. We withdrew them because they did not upheld the code of conduct that they signed. Okay. And Kapala left of own free will in early on the 9th of May 2015. Flairmace we removed on the 2nd of April last year because he also participated, in our opinion, in what is very corrupt is these SNTs. They create fake jobs at Parliament, fake activity, and they go to Swakopmund, they go all over the country, and that's the way that they increase their income, so it more than doubles.
So you were not happy with the way these MPs
No, we don't.
money?
Our party will not participate in corrupt activities, and that was one of the reasons why we held a disciplinary hearing and we dismissed him. We notified the Speaker. He will not remove them. The Speaker is keeping 2 people in Parliament and paying them. He does it on the pretext that they are factions. There are no factions in our party.
So you're telling me that the MPs that are on Parliament that are representing the WRP are not essentially, as far as you are concerned, a part of the WRP?
No, the WRP is a registered party in terms of an electoral act. It registers with its name, with its logo, with its address, with its authorized representative. I'm registered as an authorized representative. Now, the Speaker first referred the case. He said he wouldn't pay because there are factions in the party. The Speaker has got nothing to do with factions in the party. The Speaker is from SWAPO. And a voluntary association strikes at the heart of fundamental rights because in a democracy you have the right to freedom of association. So if I don't belong to a church, I've got no business meddling in the business of the church if there are infights and so on. No. Likewise, he is a member of SWAPO, he's got no right. And he does so, he meddles into the business on behalf of the National Assembly. The National Assembly has no right to meddle into the business of a party.
So let's talk about that. Is it the fact that you are a socialist party, that you are receiving so much backlash, so much despondent attitude from the ruling party? Is it because you are a socialist party?
Yeah, that is because we represent workers' interests. Our manifesto is quite clear. We are fighting against, the GIPF has been cleaned out, there's no more money. We have been fighting alongside people in the GIPF not to have their funds being used for corruption and so on. We have been fighting against the theft of pension funds of various workers, mine workers, etc., fishing workers, etc. We were always active in that. And we are demanding that this regime accounts for the people that disappeared in exile. That has not yet been done. This is our manifesto. We stand by the land lists. We assist them to conceptualize a program for them, and we assisted the homeless.
Before you carry on, let's talk about that. The fact that you say that there are still people who are missing from the struggle and that you want answers from the ruling party. Could that be perhaps what's creating the rift in Parliament?
The central problem is that they don't want workers to be represented in Parliament and those interests to be displayed there. They want to talk about, this Parliament is not talking about issues. There's the land issue. Have you heard it being discussed in any meaningful manner? There is the question of contamination of the seas. Have you heard any meaningful discussion? There's the question of Caprivi. Caprivi is an independent country, it's not part of Namibia. Have you heard that being discussed conceptually and meaningfully in Parliament? Nothing is being discussed in this Parliament which is meaningful.
So as far as you're concerned, the body of Parliament is not doing its job?
No. The point why they don't want us, we organized, under my leadership, SWAPO was organized inside this country. When I started off with SWAPO in 1973, it had one branch with 2 members, Frans Kamangula and Axel Johannes. When I left SWAPO, it had 36 branches, even an underground structure. It may sound history that you have not heard before. Now you hear the true history.
Let's move a bit away from the ruling party. Let's talk about Workers' Revolution Party. There are obviously voters who feel that there is still a chance of a more communist, perhaps, rule of law in the country. Obviously, that's what your voters must feel if they are supporting you. So how do we see this communist structure, this socialist ideal, functioning in a democracy, albeit not a full functioning democracy? But do you see a future for your party here in Namibia?
The problem is that with the excesses of Stalin, people have, from capitalism side, they've willfully equated communism and socialism to Stalinism. Stalinism was a perversion. It was exactly the opposite of socialism, of Marxism. The Stalinists actually, what we see them as Marxist is that they were an agent of the capitalists in the workers' movement. But as I've said, the highest form of democracy that we have is bourgeois democracy. That is, and I'm not talking about the democracy as it's now being practiced in Western Europe and America, but democracy as it was founded. The capitalists cannot even uphold that form of democracy. But the socialism that we are talking about must be built on that democracy. There must be freedom of expression. There must be freedom of expression of the individual. The individual's rights must be sacrosanct.
So equal opportunity, but also more of a social welfare state where you are really uplifting the proletariat and kind of making sure that this elitism which happens now in our country doesn't take place.
No, we don't want a social, welfare state. What we want, because this is where the problem lies. This regime, you have heard perhaps heard of a comprador state. The problem with Namibia, it is not really a state. It's a 5th colony of South Africa. Where it shows itself is with this new financial crisis that we have. Not even a new financial crisis. All the assets and the investments and reserves of this country had been depleted. And Humpty Dumpty cannot be put together again. But what is funny, while this government is completely bankrupt, the country functions. Because this country is run by South African finance capital, your insurance companies, your banks, your industries. South African. and this is what's happening. This is not a state that can bail out banks. It must be bailed out by one bank if it's going to be bailed out, but it will not be bailed out.
So would your party be able to give, your party's leadership be able to give this country financial autonomy?
Of course. Well, not in a isolated situation. We'll have to link up with South Africa. If South Africa does not go the same way of Namibia, it will be extremely difficult because we are subjected to immense financial economic powers. But what we are going to do, firstly, this regime does not know how much what the things like the basic economic resources of this country. The reserves, the mineral reserves, they don't know. How much is taken out of this country, they don't know. Namibian gold is connected to South African national production, not to Namibian production, for instance. We do not know 1% of how much the uranium generates. The fishing is, we probably take only a fraction, is under Namibian fishing companies' control. The rest is sucked up by Russia, by South Africa, by Spain in our fishing waters. So what we are going to do is a rationalization of resources first and foremost.
Okay. Conspiracy theories put aside, we do have, we're running out of time here. Let's look at the land issue. You have also placed yourself on the forefront of not the landless people's movement per se, but those who have been left in the dark since independence. Tell me, what is the party's viewpoint on the recent land activism?
It's simple. This government is, as I say, as a comprador entity, is selling off this country. In Nama you say kahu. That means you sell it off for pittances. That's like you want a bottle of wine, so you sell your mother's a wedding ring for a bottle of wine just to quench the thirst. That is the concept behind kahu. Now, this is what is being done. In the north, the land is being, the land of the people are being sold off to Chinese capitalism. In the south, it is sold off to every mining giant. The oil that we have here has already been sold out. Everything has been sold. We, you and I, are living in a foreign land. We are not really owning this land. And with it goes enormous poverty and frustration. You know, we can basically just travel along the tarmac roads. We can't even move off unless we want to trespass. Now the people are going to, the people who live here are going to militate, and especially the poorest of the poor. They've got no choice. But instead of addressing this issue of existentialism, the regime takes a hostile attitude towards these people. That won't help. And what is more, the danger that we see is that it tribalizes the conflict, so that landless is being pitted against landless. That is what's happening, and that's very, very dangerous.
And where are you in this movement?
We have been in this movement. We are the first party that has been in this movement for as long as we can remember. Right from when we were youths in the SWAPO Youth League. But what we try to direct this nation to is a conference, not between the state and the people, but between the peoples of this country to rationalize the issue to discuss and to reach some sort of agreement on the rationalization of the land in this country.
Because that is what government was calling upon. They have been calling upon these landless movements to come up with substantial ideas. Say, you know, demarcate this farm or this area. Talk to us. Tell us where your ancestral land is. Put it on paper. Come up with some solid recommendations. Do you see yourself stepping in and fulfilling that role?
We gave them the whole analysis of the land issue. The Wahanas, as late as 1959, the Wahanas community was dispossessed of 50,000 hectares. They are living, the whole community lives on 4,000 hectares. What we say, we start there. We give those people their land back immediately because it's illegal. We go to Danviljoen. In 1992, our party stood shoulder to shoulder with the Damara women who were claiming their land, which was also taken from them in 1956. I say this under correction, 54 or 59. But they were driven from there. Now, what we are saying, if the Namibian society wants to get out of poverty, they will have to use the land and its resources to be able to do that. And what they have to do is they will have to sit around the table, even the war reparations, will have to sit around the table with the whole Namibian society, including the farmers. And they will have to work out a viable solution to this.
So you're really calling upon transparent dialogue with both these issues, yes. Mr. Beukes, we are definitely running out of time. In the next few minutes, can you just quickly address the obvious party's challenges and then your big plans for the near future?
The first thing that one of the first things that we are going to do this year, starting because the past 2 years we have been busy with organizational work, is that we are going to address the question of India running our elections. We are going to inform our people exactly what electronics can do. And
so
if
the EVMs right up
if
there.
you do not know, and mind you, the EVMs were brought in for expediency, but it still takes a week. It goes to verification centers, and then you should see who the verifiers are. Often they haven't gone to school at all. And then you have to wait for more than a week to get your results.
Okay, the EVM, anything else?
Yeah. Then the other thing is obviously the land issue is burning. There is the reparations issue, which I call, we have started, our party has also started it. Way back in '78, we raised it in the SWAPO Youth League. Then it became part of the program of the Workers' Revolutionary Party after it was founded in 1984. 1992, we linked up with people like Ida Hoffman, and we directed it. These are the things that we are going to take. We are going to expose this thing that the GIPF have completely been depleted, and people do not know this. Windhoek, city of Windhoek, when in 1989 had 4 billion rand invested in South Africa. Few years ago, it owed 800 million. Now, if this level of theft continues, then obviously it cannot sustain this government. This government is depleted. We will begin to see it again raising its ugly head in September, October, by our estimation.
Okay. Mr. Beukes, that's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Beukes. Viewers, that is all from us at One Exclusive this evening. Please SMS your comments to 555. SMSs are charged at $1 Namibian. That's all for now. Thank you.